Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. I feel like we have a lot to talk about around this USC football program. And I feel like most of our conversations over the last couple of weeks have been what's going on the high school recruiting trail. It's been popping over there. We've talked a lot about it. Haven't talked a ton about where this team sits going in the air, kind of working through, you might say, spring practice. The thing that intrigues me the most about this USC team as we sit right now, especially compared to 12 months ago, this roster is filled with emerging young talent. Where you kind of go back to the 2024 year, you had guys like Achille Arnold, you had guys like Mason Cobb, you had guys like Easton Mascarenas. So it felt like it was a team that was really old, and it wasn't a team that was it wasn't a team that had a lot of players that were getting better at football. It felt like it was kind of a tapped out team. This roster, your best players are guys that are going into year 3 and year 2. I mean, you even look at the wide receivers. I mean, they're household names, especially with the USC fans. Jacoby Lamb and Kyle Lemon, they're only going into year 3. They're still young guys that are getting better. Look on the offensive line, Elijah Page, Alani Noah, Tobias Raymond, all going into year 3. Now, how about the defensive side of the football? Not only freshmen, guys like Jakeem Stewart, but guys like Cam Fountain in year 2, Desmond Stevens in year 2, Marcellus Williams in year 2. I feel like this team is a young, really talented team that's getting better at football, and you're starting to hear some of these young players really come into their own. And I want to highlight some names that are really stepping up during spring practice. I want to touch on, the transfer portal that's opening up as well and talk about maybe some positions that USC might want to address. Before we get into it, as always, to the USC fans, I mean, it's whether we're talking the recruiting trail, whether we're talking spring practice, the amount of support y'all continue to show to the boys has been amazing. We can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And much more importantly, Dill, we're going to start this conversation off with the Nico conversation. And I think when Nico hit the transfer portal, obviously you saw, USC is that potentially a relationship that we're going to see kind of get built. I want to start with that conversation. And I would love to hear from the USC fans in the comments section. Dill, it sounds like USC saying thanks, but no thanks in terms of adding a quarterback like Nico. Now, I'll start with this. Would it have been intriguing to add a guy like Nico, the talent that he possesses, into a program that is getting coached by Lincoln Riley? I don't think there's a single USC fan that would deny that it would be intriguing. But Dill, what I'm most happy about is that Chad Bowden is not going to disrupt the process. It felt like 2 years ago, maybe this was a move that USC would make.
Yeah.
But with Chad Bowden running this program and how he's more concerned with creating a sustainable model of success for USC as opposed to just a 1 year where we might get a little bit of a bump, that's what fires me up the most about Chad Bowden and how this USC team's going about their business since he's taken over.
Because USC is frankly a team that, given some of the struggles that it had with the quarterback spot, with Jaden and his decision making in some of those moments, there's probably an argument that in this year alone, just looking into the 2025 year alone, Nico might make sense. But I think you're right. It would feel a little bit short-sighted. It would feel a little bit disruptive to what USC is trying to build and kind of the transition they're trying to make as a program, where they are being far more aggressive on the high school trail. They're being more aggressive in terms of trying to retain their guys and build that program out like some of those greats, like what Ohio State looks like, what Notre Dame was, or what Chad Bowden was able to do at Notre Dame. So I kind of like it. Again, because USC probably would get some short-term benefit from bringing Nico in to this room, given what they have there. But it would feel short-sighted and disruptive to the long-term vision, I think, that
Yeah, and I think number one, USC seemingly not interested at all. Like, that tells me about how Lincoln Riley feels about how these quarterbacks have played during spring practice. And that should fire a lot of USC fans up. Because, look, Jaden, it was a little bit of a roller coaster in terms of the command of the offense, in terms of decision-making in the 2024 year. But, man, if you're telling me he's starting to put it together and you're telling me Lincoln Riley's feeling good about him being your quarterback one in 2025, I think that should excite a lot of USC fans. And then the second note, you were kind of touching on it. The last 90 seconds of you talking, it's all about we're doing this the right way. We're doing this so we can set up USC to not only compete for a national championship in 2025 and in 2026, we are setting up USC to be a perennial national championship caliber team year in and year out. And if you want to be that kind of team, you have to, I wouldn't say play the long game, but you got to do things right. And it feels like ever since Chad Bowden has stepped into this program, getting back the Cali pipeline, specifically at Modern Day, focusing on building the high school ranks, everything they're doing is telling me, hey, we're trying to build something sustainable with
And
USC.
even just like having like USC guys, and I know that's a little bit cliche, but like guys from California who grew up in
Yeah,
USC's
agreed.
territory and want to be at USC, and again having a program where you have guys, and you even said it, like you look at what this roster looks like right now. Yes, they definitely plug some holes with the transfer portal. Every team should be doing that if they're trying to win. But you look, they're riding with a fair amount of their young guys. You look at that offensive line: Alani Noah, Tobias Raymond,
Yeah.
Elijah Page, Justin Tuano. Like you're going with the young guys. You look at that linebacker room, you're going with the young guys in that linebacker room. You look at that, like again, in the defensive line, they probably needed to add a couple of big bodies. We all knew that. They probably had to add a couple of guys in the secondary like they did. But in the places that they could kind of keep their young pipeline together and kind of build and make that the core of their team, they still did it. And that's not something we always saw from USC, frankly, for the last 2 years.
Here's the last thing I'll note is that it feels like, and we've talked a lot about this, the administration, the front office, the coaching staff, all on the same page, like all pulling in the same way. I'll add one more group to that, and that's the fan base. Like I don't, y'all know we talk a lot to the USC fans. We see y'all in the comment section. We're on the message boards with y'all. I didn't see a single fan. I don't think so, at least. That was like, let's go get Nico. So it's like the whole program down to the fan base seems like we're all on the same page in terms of where we want to go as a program. That excites me as well. Let's put a close on the Nico situation, but I did want to talk about that. General thoughts around spring practice. Still, everything I'm hearing, and I'm sure many of the USC fans are too, it is a physical and competitive spring practice for USC. I think they're trying to figure out, they're kind of throwing these young guys into the fire and saying, we're going to compete in spring practice and we're going to see who our difference makers are going to be in 2025. Now, the young talent that's emerging, we've talked about the offensive line, like Tobias Raymond seemingly taking a massive step going into year 3. That personally fires me up. You're hearing good things about the quarterback room, but Dale, I'll go to the defensive side of the football, man. The linebacker room, Desmond Stevens and Jaden Walker. And this is a little bit of a concern, at least I think a lot of USC fans had it going into spring practice. Look, we know Eric Gentry, a healthy Eric Gentry, one of, if not the best, linebacker in the country. We are optimistic about where Desmond Stevens is going into year 2. Outside of that, we were a little bit concerned about the numbers in the linebacker room. The emergence of Jaden Walker, second-year guy from the state of Michigan. I'm kind of salty my Michigan Wolverines did not go out and get. That's huge, not only because you love to hear that your young players are getting better within the program, but specifically at linebacker, we needed some guys to step up. Sounds like exactly what Jaden Walker's doing for this program.
And again, you trusting the young guys to go make it happen. It wasn't like USC was hyper aggressive trying to get linebackers in the portal.
Yeah.
And again, that's just like, well, Desmond Stevens and Jaden Walker are going to be the future. We are going to build this team. You obviously bring in Matai Togiai, who, again, if he can get like his weight up to a certain number, he probably can be a player, at least a depth piece for this USC team early in his tenure. But again, you do like the direction of trying to like, okay, just these guys are going to get better. And yeah, there'll be some growing pains perhaps in this 2025 season, but Jaden Walker and Desmond Stevens are going to be better players for it, hopefully in the future. When USC, you look at like kind of the future out a couple of years, is probably going to be in their prime, ready to go. Like,
yeah, and look, another thing that we don't talk about nearly enough is if USC wanted to go at 2 linebackers in the portal, it's taking a lot of reps from a guy like Jaden Walker in spring practice. Those reps are valuable. I think USC took this approach of like, we'll address the positions that are glaring that we need to address, specifically big bodies in the middle of that defensive line. But we don't want to hinder the development of the young guys that we feel good about over the next couple of years. I feel like Jaden Walker was one of them. Dill, how about Marcellus Williams in the back end? A guy that I think a lot of us expected to be a year 1 at least contributor. It was a quiet year 1 for Marcellus Williams. from what it sounds like, that light bulb starting to turn on for my guy Marcellus Williams. I would not be surprised if he is your starting cornerback opposite DJ Harvey going into 2025. You're hearing very good things about true freshman Alex Graham too, another Michigan guy. I don't know if I love USC going up into our backyard taking this Michigan talent, but I'll say they seem to be doing a hell of a job with their Michigan guys coming into this USC program.
And Marcellus Williams was the guy we were kind of watching going back to spring
Yeah.
last year, like having headiness, the sense, and being able to get his hands on footballs, take it away, like those things that we were kind of frustrated about in the years. God, what's Alex Grinch? Sorry, I was blanking on his name, but like in the Alex Grinch years when cornerbacks weren't sticky, they weren't getting their hands on balls, they weren't in passing lanes, and then you see with Dan Lynn, you saw a guy like Marcellus Williams flash in that spring game. You're like, all right, well, these young guys are going to be developed the right way, hopefully, and they're going to, at some point in their careers, play much better football. He's a guy I think you'd love to see for USC because, again, you want to see more of that pipeline, high school to playing to being very productive and hopefully go to the league. And Marcellus Williams, you look in that cornerback room, he's kind of the guy right now I'm kind of watching to be.
You could probably say that about a lot of different positions on this football team to begin Lincoln Riley's tenure. Was it just like we and I think a lot of it had to do with the coaching staff. Like it wasn't a very good coaching staff to start off Lincoln Riley's tenure at USC, specifically on defense, and you didn't see guys like Damani Jackson commit to USC and get developed the right way. I feel like you're getting that. You know, whether it's Cam Fountain on the defensive line, whether it's Desmond Stevens or Jaden Walker at backer, whether it's Marcellus Williams at cornerback. Every elite program, you can go about building national championship teams different ways. One thing has to be a commonality. We are developing the players that we recruit out of high school. If you don't do that, you don't give yourself a chance, and it feels like USC is doing that. Get into an early discussion, right? Transfer portal needs. I don't think many people realize this. That transfer portal window opens up on Tuesday. When I look at this USC roster, number one, my opinions on transfer portal targets have changed. Let's start on the offensive side of the football, and I think a position that was a concern going into spring was the offensive line, especially at right tackle. Dill, what you're hearing from most notably Tobias Raymond, but also a guy like Justin T, feel better about where not only our right tackle position sits, but maybe the depth on the offensive line as well. Not saying USC should not go to the portal and grab an offensive lineman. It seems like less of a concern than we thought it was going to be 6 weeks ago.
And the problem is it's still going to be kind of hard to find many better like guys who are going to start. I just look again, like Lonnie Noah and Elijah Page, I feel like are like kind of budding stars in the sense you kind of got some of those interior guys that you needed to with Reed and Wingfield in the winter portal when you should be, in my opinion, hitting the portal kind of harder.
Agreed.
I don't love the idea going into the spring portal and thinking you're going to add like 5 to 10 guys. Like maybe you add 2 to 3 or some number like that. But if you're really like hunting that for like a good chunkier roster, if you will.
So I'll push back there. 2 to 3 starters, I probably would agree with. And that's kind of where USC sits is like the number might be 5 to 7 for USC in terms of spring portal additions, but a lot of these guys, it's a lot of depth. It's not a lot of like, hey, we need a guy to come in and start because we don't have a good starter. Like you kind of feel good with your starting 11 on both sides of the football. Now, I mean, you go to like a wide receiver. Like we're thin. We don't have a ton of bodies. Now, again, that's another position that I kind of changed my mind on, you know, with what you're hearing from a guy like Corey Sims or what you're hearing from a guy like Prince coming from Boise State. Like it sounds like those guys could be your wide receiver 3. Might want to add one more. I'd say the same thing a linebacker, Dill. Like that's probably the most glaring position that USC should look to add just because we just don't have that many bodies that have played football at the collegiate ranks. But are you looking for a starting linebacker? I would say no. From what you heard from Eric, what we know from Eric Gentry.
I don't think you're finding one. Like we talk about it, like there's just not a ton of really great production in the spring portal window anywhere. Like most of the guys who are
I don't know. You're speaking a little too soon. We've seen some dogs hit the portal Sunday after, like as we're recording.
That could be again. Maybe we'll have a more active portal. Last spring, I was not wildly impressed with what was in there. So it's like again, you have solid players. Linebacker is the only position I would really like be a little concerned if they didn't get anybody. Everywhere else, like again, like there's maybe spots you'd maybe want to add, but like aside from linebacker, I think you're mostly in okay shape. Linebacker, though, you really only have two guys who have played almost any linebacker.
Yep.
Anthony Beavers, like, yeah, he's coming down from that safety spot, but like you only have two guys who have played, and
Yeah.
then you true freshman and a guy who's switching positions, or a true
Yeah.
sophomore.
And Jaden Walker. Yeah. Redshirt freshman. Yeah. It's I wouldn't again. I wouldn't expect Chad Bowden to get super aggressive because that's not how he wants to build this thing out. I think you'll address some depth concerns, and that's probably what you want to be doing in the spring. Like the spring is not the time to build your roster, man. It's just not. But USC, I don't think needs to because they have and that I mean, they got a lot of young talent that's emerging, and you don't want to have to stunt that. And I feel like you see so many programs do that, where it's like, oh, we don't trust the young cats, so we're going to go out and add a veteran that's going to be on with our program for 6 months and then leave, and then you
But I
just
also
hinder.
think USD is in a bit of a different like place. Like I don't get the sense Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat because of what he's done this offseason and kind of the revamping he's done of
Yeah,
this program.
agreed.
If I'm a USC fan, he's bought plenty of time because if they stay hot like this and they recruit the way they're
Yeah,
recruiting right now, I'm very willing to kind of be a little bit more patient than maybe I would have been
agreed.
if their class was sitting there at like rank number 40 and you're like, well, now we better win or else we're looking for a
Yeah,
new coach.
yeah. I
Right now, I'm not like in total win now at the cost of everything
like
else.
why was he on the hot seat at times last year? Is because the process in terms of how they went about building this roster
Wasn't
was
great.
not great. And now it's like it seems like everything is moving in the right direction. You're doing things the right way. And yeah, it might not result in the national championship in 2025, even though that's going to be the expectation. But this program is clearly going in the right direction.
So yeah,
Well,
that's why I don't necessarily think like you go be super aggressive in the spring and do anything that'll stunt the development of
agreed.
any like young defensive linemen, young offensive linemen,
Yeah,
young
that's
linebackers,
fair.
and young secondary guys. I want those guys to get their shot at this point if I'm a USC fan because again, right now, like I don't know that USC is in a great position to go be like a favorite for a national championship in 25. But if they keep doing what they're doing, they put themselves in that place for 26, 27, 28.
Yeah, that's what that's probably a great way to end it. Like if you continue what you're doing over the last 4 months, you will put yourself in a place where it's not only, hey, we got a really good roster in 2026, we can win one national championship caliber teams every single year. That is the vision that Chad Bowden has. And he's not going to sacrifice that vision for a flash in the pan like a guy like Nico, how we kind of started this thing. All right. Good conversation. To the USC fans, y'all let it fly in the comment section. Again, appreciate you guys. It has been a blast talking this football team. The support means the world. And we'll talk to y'all later.